So I'm driving, so that's why I think it's okay to try to talk about some more Star Wars. The lightsaber. So my argument is the lightsaber is real and works exactly like it does in the movies, the classic movies, Star Wars Episode 4, 5, and 6. Now, in the movies, they don't bother too much with heavy descriptions because, for one thing, you know, George Lucas, he comes from a background where the viewer uses their imagination. You know, so like books, you know, you're supposed to use your imagination, and for each reader of the book, the story is different. And for each viewer of the movie, the story is different. And so inherently, although they may wish to deepen their plot by adding more details so that a certain aspect of the plot will be more important, on the whole, you know, if I think something and that's what I like about the movie, then the movies were designed to accommodate that. So there's all of this canon for Star Wars that really irons out all of the practical details of how a lightsaber is supposed to work. And they have a kyber crystal, and it's the source of power, and I don't know that stuff. I just know about that stuff because after I thought of my interpretation of the lightsaber, which is that the lightsaber works the same way as a black hole, that I started reading about these canon versions of the lightsaber with a kyber crystal that produces a blade. I'm not really sure how the kyber crystal produces a blade. However, interestingly enough, my interpretation of the lightsaber would require an oscillator. It would require a timing to be very precise and very consistent. So a crystal of very high quality and of very specific, maybe density properties is imaginable. You know, a quartz crystal has an operating, you know, range for frequency, and then actually probably at some frequencies or at some energy levels, maybe quartz doesn't work that well anymore, and there's other crystals in the world that are produced different ways that might inherently, you know, withstand oscillation of different rates and perform well in, you know, in different applications. So a lightsaber as a black hole. So basically, when they use the Large Hadron Collider, the CERN research station in wherever it is in the Alps or whatever, Switzerland or something, they accelerate a particle one direction and the other direction. They collide the particles, and in this collision event, it is hypothesized, it is theorized, that they are creating little vortexes of energy that basically measure as a singularity. So a black hole measures as a singularity, and a singularity is a space-time phenomenon where as you measure towards the center of the singularity, the closer you get towards the singularity, the very center of the singularity, the closer you get to zero space-time. So in a black hole, there's a mass gravity phenomenon where there's so much mass and such density that gravity pulls light to its center, and magnetism, you know, can't expand away from it. I don't really know exactly how black holes work, but the black hole has a equal math equation to the Big Bang Theory's beginning of the universe. So as light expands away from the center of the beginning of the universe, they've figured out all these equations that help us calculate how big the universe is or something like like that. Black holes are like the reverse. So as you want to calculate the behavior of matter or energy, I really don't know that much about. I don't know. I'm not in any way familiar with how the math actually goes. But the center of a black hole and how the gravity is infinite gravity there, and light can't escape the black hole, that concept equals the same concept as the Big Bang Theory's starting of the universe. And likewise, after the explosion caused by the collision event in the particle accelerator, there's a massive amount of energy that's released, and firing out of this explosion are little vortexes that behave like a singularity, where there's a bunch of gravity and light is actually pulled towards the center of this vortex. So one thing that people talk about is dark matter, and how there's this dark matter that's coming out of these things, and is it dark matter that's coming out of these things? But where normally they're measuring energy coming away from the explosion event, actually in this case it's the reverse, and it's as though the energy is being pulled towards the center of this vortex that's spiraling out of the explosion from the collision event inside of the particle collider. So lightsaber, this is me talking, would be if you could specifically create that vortex in a stream of constantly, firing this vortex down a line, so that at all times there's a vortex acting on that space, so that it pulls everything that's there in that space, the blade of the lightsaber, to the center of the vortex, which is the blade of the lightsaber. So you can imagine, in my description, you can imagine the singularities that come out of the particle collider comparing to a black hole, the same way you could imagine if you push your hand or an oar or a stick through the water and it makes little whirlpools. These little whirlpools behave just like a true draining whirlpool. But when they run out of energy, they stop being a whirlpool and everything is still there. In a whirlpool, there has to be a plug that you pull, or a hole under the lake or something like that, where the water actually goes and never returns from. So in a black hole, it's an enormous mass driven event where matter goes to the black hole and never comes out. So a black hole is like a drain, in that light and matter get sucked to the black hole and they never escape. And the black hole is continuous because, interestingly, it's a gravity phenomenon and it's self-sustaining, so it just continues to work and it stays a black hole. The particle collider creates a little vortex that's like the little whirlpools that come off the paddle of a boat, and these little vortexes, they last for only a very short time and then they're over. So the matter would get pulled to the center of the vortex, and then the vortex only pulls a short distance away and only for a very short period of time, because that vortex isn't around long enough to create the gravitational field that actually interacts with any more of the world around it than the distance that the blade occupies, the width of the blade. So however long that vortex exists, there's a math equation that figures out how far away the gravitational event reaches. And so because that vortex only lasts for a very infinitesimal amount of time, it only manages to create a gravitational pull that's this far away, and in that space, it rips space-time, and it takes the matter that's within the existence of the blade and collapses it to the center, and that's how it cuts. So when you swipe your blade across something, where the blade goes, just like in the movie, all of the matter that is within the space of the blade would be gone, and at the edge of the blade, it would be burned, because all the matter would have ripped and released energy in the same way as, you know, fire, and it would have pulled all the matter that is missing into the blade, and then all of the other matter at the edge of the blade would have basically burned. That's why the lightsaber releases light, because it's always burning the air that it's occupying. So, I should call it there, but I do want to say that my theory is that the matter that is collected by the lightsaber stays inside of the lightsaber because it's a stream of singularities. So one singularity gets to the tip of the blade, and when it ceases to be a singularity, the matter should expand, but the event happens close enough to the next following singularity that as this singularity dies, this singularity collects its matter right at the tip of the blade, but then the next singularity is right behind that one, so that when this one dies, all of the two singularities matter should then expand from the tip of the blade, but it doesn't, because the next singularity is right there. So then when the lightsaber retracts, it just catches that event and brings it down. So inside of the handle and inside of the blade of the lightsaber is all of the matter that the Jedi has wiped the blade across for the life of the lightsaber. So when Yoda doesn't just have his lightsaber on all the time, that's actually very environmentally friendly, because you would only want to turn your lightsaber on long enough to collect the matter that you were trying to collect. So if you were trying to collect some of the matter, you know, of enemy's body part, then you would only have the blade on long enough to wipe across the body part, and you wouldn't actually just swing your blade around through the air, because so much life depends on that matter, and when you just erase that matter, it will impact that planet, you know, forevermore. So I'm gonna cut it because that's a very long video and I'm here at my destination, but I'm hoping that I got a little description of my interpretation of the lightsaber into the video.